So, you know the National Defense Authorization Act that Trump has been screaming about and then vetoed, and he vetoed it because he was upset that Section 230 wasn't repealed as part of the bill, and the veto is going to be overridden, and it's all going to go through, and it's all going to be back to normal business as usual because that's how broken our government is. There's actually something else you should know about this act, though. There's something else in here that is relevant to our interests. And I have to give credit where credit is due. I did not find this because I can't sift through this stuff for hours and hours. I would lose my mind. I would pull out what remains of my hair. But I'm very grateful that Learn to Code, who is a member of my locals community, did go through the bill and did find this little nugget that I'm about to share with all of you. So if you don't know what my locals community is, by the way, it is a private social media site. It is completely uncensored. It is like social media for adults. It's really nice. I love my locals community so much. I don't have to stress out on there. We do all sorts of cool things together. We do weekly, actually 2 Zoom calls a week with the community, just bantering and sharing news and information and talking about different issues, and it's just really nice. If you want to join to check it out, its information is literally right below me in this video, kb.locals.com, and you'll be able to sign up and become a member of the community and just see what's going on. But this is something that I think that many of you are going to be interested in. So the National Defense Authorization Act has buried within its text some information about chief diversity officers in the military. What could possibly go wrong with this plan? So here's what it said. There is a chief diversity officer of the Department of Defense who shall be appointed by the Secretary of Defense. The chief diversity officer shall be appointed from among persons who have an extensive management or business background and experience with diversity and inclusion. A person may not be appointed as Chief Diversity Officer within 3 years after relief from active duty as a commissioned officer of a regular component of the armed forces. The Chief Diversity Officer shall report directly to the Secretary of Defense in the performance of the duties of the Chief Diversity Officer under this section. And the duties of the Chief Diversity Officer include being responsible for providing advice on policy, oversight, guidance, and coordination of all matters of the Department of Defense related to diversity and inclusion. Advises the Secretary of Defense, the secretaries of the military departments, and the heads of all other elements of the departments with regards to matters of diversity and inclusion. Shall establish and maintain a Department of Defense strategic plan that publicly states a diversity definition, vision, and goals for the department. We'll have to look forward to that, won't we? Shall define a set of strategic metrics that are directly linked to key organizational priorities and goals, actionable, and actively used to implement the strategic plan under paragraph 3. Shall advise in the establishment of training in diversity. Wait, hang on. I lost my place. Hang on. I was more focused on making a funny voice than I was on reading the bill. Shall advise in the establishment of training in diversity dynamics and training in practices for leading diverse groups effectively. I really do wonder how they're defining diversity in all of this, but let's just keep going. Shall advise in the establishment of a strategic plan for diverse participation by institutions of higher education, including, we might get a clue of what they mean by diversity, historically Black colleges and universities, and minority-serving institutions, federally funded research and development centers, and individuals in defense-related research, development, test, and evaluation activities. Shall advise in the establishment of a strategic plan for outreach to and recruiting from untapped locations and underrepresented demographic groups. Shall coordinate with and be supported by the Office of People Analytics on studies, assessments, and related work relevant to diversity and inclusion, and shall perform additional duties and exercises such as powers the Secretary of Defense may prescribe. And then we keep going here. Chief Diversity Officer, Senior Advisors for Diversity and Inclusion for the military departments and Coast Guard. Appointment required. Each secretary of a military department shall appoint within such military department a senior advisor for diversity and inclusion for such military departments and for the armed force or armed forces under the jurisdiction of such secretary, the Commandant of the Coast Guard shall appoint a senior advisor for diversity and inclusion for the Coast Guard. Qualification and limitation. Each senior advisor for diversity and inclusion shall be appointed from among persons who have extensive management or business background and experience with diversity and inclusion. A person may not be appointed, basically the same thing. A senior advisor for diversity and inclusion shall report directly to the Secretary of the Military Department within which appointed. The senior advisor for diversity and inclusion for the Coast Guard shall report directly to the Commandant of the Coast Guard. Duties. A senior advisor for diversity and inclusion with respect to the military department and armed force or armed forces concerned is responsible for providing advice, guidance, and coordination for all matters related to diversity and inclusion, and shall advise in the establishment of training in diversity dynamics and training in practices for leading diverse groups effectively, shall advise and assist in evaluations and assessments of diversity, shall develop a strategic plan and inclusion plan, which plan shall be consistent with the strategic plan developed and maintained pursuant blah blah blah, shall develop strategic goals and measures of performance related to efforts to reflect the diverse population of the United States eligible to serve in the armed forces, which goals and measures of performance shall be consistent with the strategic metrics defined pursuant to subsection B4, blah, 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 shall perform other duties as assigned. Effective date, this section and the amendments made by this section shall take effect on February 1st, 2021. So, if we can assume, and I don't necessarily think that we should, but if we can make, let's just say, let's live in the land where Biden is going to get inaugurated as president. Let's just live there for a second because it's got a pretty high chance of happening, right? And he immediately rescinds Donald Trump's executive orders around federally funded dollars going to diversity training and based on critical race theory. And now the military has said that it is going to appoint a chief diversity officer that is going to report up to the Secretary of Defense and a whole little slew of diversity and inclusion advisors in all the different branches of the armed forces. What could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong with this plan? Now, fun fact, critical race theory was actually being taught in the military. It was already being taught. The Air Force was doing something with it. I believe the Coast Guard was doing something with it. And it was being taught as an introductory level class at West Point before Trump banned it with his executive orders. If those executive orders go away, it's going to come right back into the military right quick. And since we know that this type of training does not lead to any quantifiable results whatsoever, I actually was just looking at a whole long list of studies before I did this video, which prove emphatically, based on any measure that you look at this training with, it doesn't work. It doesn't produce quantifiable results that actually matter in any sort of business setting. And I'm going to just make the assumption that the military is not special in this regard. What could possibly go wrong with a new chief diversity officer and a slew of diversity advisors in the military? Nothing could go wrong with this plan. All right, I just thought I'd tell you about it. I just thought I'd make you aware of that there's more that's wrong with this bill than just the lack of a repeal of Section 230. This is going to be a bigger problem. But hey, why not? Why not just fight the battle on multiple fronts? What else do I have to do all day? Alright guys, if you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel, giving it a thumbs up, leaving a comment, letting me know what you think could possibly go wrong with this plan. That's all I've got for right now. I'll see you soon.